welcome to Watch, Review, Repeat. This is the podcast where two best friends discuss the latest in film and television, and then do it all over again the following episode. My name is Colton Brown. With me is Andrew Meadows. And,
Good afternoon. I'm kind of cutting you off.
Hello,
I'm coming in
hello,
hot.
hello. Yes. Good afternoon. Good evening. It's time to wrap up another year. Another year has gone by since we started this podcast. I think that makes it I think 4 full years of the podcast plus a partial year because we started in 2017. So
Wow.
man, where does the time go is kind of how I feel about it right now. I mean, just especially these past couple years being the black hole that they are is just kind of crazy to think about. But god damn it, man, we're in 2022. We're almost a month into it actually as of now. So
Doing it for a while.
We've been doing it for a while. We're closing in on 200. It's really pretty crazy. But what better time to close the door on 2021, talk about some film and television from that year, from last year, and reminisce a little bit, get into some good stuff, maybe a couple bad things as well. I don't know, but I always love doing these episodes because it's an opportunity to, in some circumstances, rewatch films that I really enjoyed throughout the year, or as I often do, I cram in preparation for this episode. I watch a bunch of this is getting a lot of awards buzz. I should watch this. I should watch that. So I watched a few things in preparation for this year, and what do you know? They're probably going to be worthy of at least a mention or two. So it's just a good time to enjoy the things that we had. And what I will say, I mean, and we'll tee things up a little bit more as we get into our kind of rankings and talking about the best of the year. 2021 I think was a better year overall.
Yes,
and
for everything.
And I think effectively every aspect, right?
Yes, absolutely.
It wasn't a great year. It wasn't a perfect year. Personally speaking, had a few things that took the year down a notch or two. But speaking purely in terms of film and television, well, I mean things were definitely better. Things were definitely better overall.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, I mean, why don't we just hit on the big points of 2021? This is our 2021 a year in review episode, and so what we can say about 2021 is that COVID-19 still wreaking havoc. It continues to wreak havoc into 2022 as well. So
I think
sure,
it's here
we'll
to
talk
stay.
about it yet again. It's probably here to stay. We'll leave it at that. It's here to stay, but it obviously had a very discernible impact in the early months on film and television. But we finally got to a point in 2021 where movie theaters opened their doors once again, and I think for the most part, in most places in the country, doors have remained open. I think even like Philadelphia, you actually have to show proof of vaccination before you can get into a theater, but that's obviously not the case in probably many parts of the country, such as where you live. But theaters came back. Marvel movies came back. Lots of other movies came back. A lot of the things that we hoped and dreamed that we would see in 2020 finally emerged in 2021. Long overdue, long awaited, but we got them, and some were pretty fucking good. Some were just fine. Some, maybe not as good as we would have hoped, but it is what it is. What I do know is we're still fucking waiting on goddamn Top Gun, which I'm sure is not too pleasing for you.
No.
But
No, I'm not pleased at all.
But yeah.
But what are you going to do? Honestly,
what are you going to do? You're just going to keep waiting and knock on wood, we'll be able to come back roughly this time next year and have another maybe a second chat about Top Gun if it hopefully lives up to the hype. But for the most part, I think that most of everything that we at least expected to have come out in 2021 did eventually make its debut. So there's probably exceptions beyond Top Gun that are escaping my mind right now. But hey, that's not so bad. Box office was somewhat resurgent. I think overall, I mean, it was
for Spider-Man.
I think there's really one shining example, yes, of are you sure there's still a pandemic going on? Everything else feels like, oh yeah. Those are lower numbers compared to what they probably would have been under normal circumstances. And then there's the beast that just will not stop, Spider-Man: No Way Home, which has just absolutely dominated the box office and is far and away, I mean, just by a ridiculous, absurd amount, the highest grossing film of the year. I'm going to give you numbers right now because I need to use numbers to really
Needs to be said.
show what kind of insanity is happening with Spider-Man. So Spider-Man, and this is as of recording, so this is obviously including grosses into the new year and through nearly the end of January. But Spider-Man: No Way Home, as of recording this, is sitting at $723 million domestically, just in North America alone. The second highest grossing film in the entirety of 2021. Do you want to take a guess at what it might be? Do you want to play a game?
Fast and Furious.
Fast and Furious is a great guess. Fast and Furious clocked in at number 5 domestically for the year. I think it might have been higher for the worldwide, but F9 was only number 5. In fact, the 2, 3, 4 slots, actually, and 6, are all occupied by other comic book films in terms of domestic gross for this year. So it's really just a matter of what's the order of them. And so what was it? What was number 2? What do you think number 2 was?
Should be Shang-Chi.
Got it. You got it.
Yes.
Yep. Shang-Chi ended up at number 2, followed by Venom, followed by Black Widow, followed by F9, and then followed by Eternals. And then we get to number 7, which is No Time to Die. So that's number 7 is where you get a non-comic book film to break it. So there's a lot of comic book films at the top, but nothing quite like Spider-Man. Spider-Man, $700 million. Shang-Chi, $224 million. A $500 million difference between those two.
It's massive.
It's basically, I guess, more than 3 times the amount. I mean, just ridiculous. Worldwide, Spider-Man: No Way Home. I'm sure Enrique is listening. His correction, his prediction came to pass. Spider-Man: No Way Home eclipsed $1.5 billion. In fact, it's almost at $1.7 billion worldwide. It's the only film in the entirety of 2021 to break the $1 billion mark. There were a couple, I think, foreign films, probably Chinese films, if I had to guess, that came damn close, clocking in at around 900 and 822 million. But other than that, No Time to Die and F9 were the number 4 and 5 slots. So No Time to Die did 774 worldwide. F9 did 726 million for all these worldwide. So, even going to the number 4 and 5 slot, you're talking about Spider-Man doing twice as much worldwide. So Spider-Man is a force to be reckoned with. Just absolute, unparalleled success in terms of the box office.
In a pandemic.
I mean, it'd probably be around $2 billion, with normal circumstances. So maybe it was just the perfect storm. Maybe it doesn't play as well if people are holding out. They're not seeing the other things, but God damn it, Spider-Man's coming out. This is the one thing that we're going to go see. I don't know what it is. The dynamics that lead to it doing as well as it is. Maybe there's no set of circumstances in which it would have done much better than this. But man, it's hard to envision anything doing much better than how Spider-Man is doing. So perhaps we'll talk about Spider-Man a little bit.
And this
later
was a
this
discussion
episode.
not had last year, to be clear.
Yes, I think that this introduction is probably a little different. Whereas just like we watched some movies on Netflix, man. Yeah, they were all right. Most Netflix
we were allowed
films
to
are
go
all
see
right.
Tenet.
Yeah,
But we didn't.
Yeah. Well, I did. I saw it in a drive-in, so it was fine for me. But you had to wait. You had to wait so long to see a goddamn Christopher Nolan film. That's how shitty 2020 was right there. That's it in a nutshell. So anyway,
Life's on the up.
Life is on the up. Film and television's on the up. Things were definitely better, and we hope that the trend continues moving into 2022 and such. So, all things considered, we have to be happy with what we got. I think anyway. So what are we going to do on this episode? We'll dive into television a little bit, and then we'll get into film. how we're doing this, it's kind of the same deal. If anyone's listened to our episodes from the years past of how we've done our year in review, it's kind of the same drill. What we did last year, we basically set out I guess a guideline, a deadline. I don't know the best way to put it. Where if a movie did not receive either a wide release or if it was not available to stream before January 1st, then it could not be in consideration. So what happened is there was a lot of the Oscars, the Golden Globes last year changed their deadlines basically, so that there were a lot of films that were quote-unquote 2020 films that basically didn't come out until 2021 that got lumped into a lot of the Oscars buzz. For example, Nomadland. Big movie, won a lot of awards, and it wasn't...
But nobody could fucking watch it.
Yeah, no one could watch it until months into 2021. So for us, for us peasants that have to wait for shit to come out because we don't get screeners or anything like that, like... You know, if there's no way to watch a thing until 2021, and I mean really, really watch it, you know, not just because it's more convenient to watch it, but you literally had no way to see it until 2021 came along, it's a 2021 film.
That's the way I feel about it.
I think that's the way we're going to have to roll with it, and that's how we're gonna treat things. So if it came out between January 1st, 2021, and before January 1st, 2022, either theatrically or on streaming, it's a 2021 film. So that's how it's going to be.
Which seems
that's
pretty
our
fucking
criteria.
logical, I think.
It seems pretty logical. I think so too. But it has to be said because it's going to include things that, like I said, were at last year's Oscars, which just feels very bizarre to me. You know what I mean? I guess, whatever. That's how it's going to be. And so what else is something that's worthy of being said? Be wary. There are potentially full spoilers abound for any of these films that we talk about. I think that we usually are pretty good about dancing around like big spoilers. You know what I mean? Like we're not here to, you know, piss people off and tell you what happened and everything.
And we're not here to
but
take
understandly,
deep plot point dives.
No,
either,
right?
you
Like
know?
that's what we have the regular episodes that we do these things for. Like here, we're talking about what stands out to us. Maybe it's a big plot point, but more often than not, it's the cinematography or this performance or this particular aspect of it or how it made us feel. Like these are kind of sorts of things that we tend to talk about as opposed to, wow, the way that it ended with X happening and Y dying, like that was really, really like why this movie was so good. That may be the case. I don't know if it's the case this year, but obviously those could be impactful moments that you'd want to talk about. So it may come up naturally in the course of conversation. We'll try to be respectful as much as possible. And I think maybe the most important disclaimer is these are our opinions. It's how it goes. You know, we have feelings on these things. You may disagree. You may really agree. You may agree with everything we say. But you know what we say is how we feel. We're going with our guts on all these. And you know, we didn't get to watch everything either. So there may be exclusions that you find noteworthy. Andrew, before we even started recording, was just like, you know, it's a shame we didn't get to watch Nightmare Alley. Yeah, we didn't get to watch a fucking movie from Guillermo del Toro. You think that would have made our best of list for this year or 2021? Highly likely, right? I mean, based on his pedigree.
A couple of years ago,
right? You know, so you know, it sucks we didn't get to see that, but the dumbasses dumped it right before Spider-Man. And it got swallowed alive and kicked out of theaters after about a week. But it is coming to HBO Max shortly. But, you know, we had to record this episode. We couldn't wait too long to do it. So it is what it is. Nightmare Alley is one. I've heard great things about Belfast. It's a Kenneth Branagh film. And The Harder They Fall on Netflix is one that I wanted to watch and never got a chance to. So there's probably countless other examples, again, of things that I didn't get to see that maybe would have made an impact on me. But
Belfast is supposed to be really good. I forgot all about Belfast.
Yeah, I've heard great things, and I'm sure I'll see it at some point. And when I do, I'll talk about it. But I can't. I gotta go with what I know.
The French Dispatch. I didn't get to watch that either.
Yeah, so you know, there's things you missed. There's things that I missed.
We people that do other things. So
we have jobs, we have lives, we have things that we do. We don't do this professionally. If we did, then you know we'd be kind of we'd be out of excuses for why we were not seeing.
I will tell the patrons or everyone listening that if enough patrons join, Maybe I could at least do it professionally. I'll watch all sorts of shit. I promise. I'll quit the fucking car lot and I'll watch shit daily.
I mean, it sounds like a pretty sweet gig to me.
I just need a bunch of people to supplement my income, please. So
yeah, we need quite a few before we're exploring that option. But it would be great. It would be great. So anyway, as a general opening question for you before we really dive into the nitty gritty. Do you feel like 2021, obviously it's better than 2020. I think we pretty plainly established that. Do you think that 2021 felt like a return to form or just it was an improvement? Like, do you feel like, okay, things are pretty much back to normal?
So as far as like the consistency of things being released, I felt like it's a return to form.
Okay.
I don't know if it's the way we made the list of things that we watched, because I generally only watch the things that we wanted to cover, right, this year. It's been real busy. This year's planning out to be real busy, so when I sit down and watch a movie, it's generally things that we're watching for this podcast.
Right, that we'll do an episode on. Sure.
Right, that way we can have a joint discussion on it. It makes it, and arguably, it makes it a lot more fun if I can sit here and talk to you about something for, an hour and a half, 2 hours, or whatever the case may be. So it makes watching that one particular thing a lot of fun, and everything. And we watched a lot of really good shit this year. Whereas pre-pandemic, maybe we were just fucking swinging at everything. We're just watching.
Something's coming out every week.
We're gonna watch it.
Who knows how it's going to be? But we'll watch it. We'll talk about it. Yeah, we were choosy. So we were choosy this year.
Maybe life has gotten more. Life's gotten more full on our parts to where, all right, so, we have 2 weeks. We have generally 2 weeks in between episodes or what have you. What's coming out in the span of those 2 weeks? We're going to pick the best looking one because I got time to go watch one movie. I don't want to go watch a piece of shit.
Right. We're going to make an educated guess. It's not guaranteed to be good, but hey, usually we can have we could predict. We've been doing it for a while. We can usually spot.
We
have a sense of, all right. We think Venom's going to be bad, so we're not going to watch it. We're not going to cover it. That's how it goes. Still haven't seen it. Maybe it's great. Maybe we called it wrong, but it is what it is.
Which is, in one sense, it's unfortunate because we have a lot of fun recording the episodes that we shit on stuff. But at the same time, it's not fun to endure a 2-hour shit.
In the moment, movie. It's usually pretty miserable, especially if you're. Well, it's if you're in the theater, you're stuck there. Whereas if you're at home after about 10 minutes in, you're like, oh my god, I have to actually force myself to do this.
That's true. Yeah.
Anyway.
So it's a weird thing because we watched an abnormally amount of good things. Watched a lot of good things this year.
Right. I think things are heavily slanted for us towards a lot of really good shit that we watched. And it's good on the one hand that we didn't have to watch a lot of shit. We weren't subjected to a lot of miserable theater experiences. But on the other hand, it makes it pretty fucking difficult at the end of the day when you're trying to rack your brain to think all right, is this movie better than that? I don't know. They're both really fucking good. And there's just a lot of really, really good films that we saw this year. It's not that every film that came out this year was amazing, obviously, but man, we had a really good crop of movies that we ended up watching. So, yeah. For my money, there are a few movies that I quite enjoyed that I'm not going to really probably talk about for the remainder of the episode. So I'll shout them out now just as a kind of hey, here's a few little things that we talked about that I, go listen to our episode on it if you want to hear us give more exhaustive thoughts. But I really like The Quiet Place Part 2, for example. And it was a great film, great continuation, but spoilers, it's not in my top 10,
Sure.
Black Widow, I liked a hell of a lot more than you did. I'm pretty sure I gave it a very yes in terms of our recommendations, but it's not in my top 10. Eternals, same way. I like Eternals. Obviously, Eternals is probably a very disappointing film for a sizable chunk of the population for this reason or that reason. I happen to quite like it. It's not in my top 10, but I liked it. And No Time to Die, I really fucking dug it. That one maybe I'll talk about aspects of No Time to Die maybe moving forward, but as a film, not in my top 10, but pretty fucking good. So I mean, I don't know if there was anything in there that like wasn't quite, the best of the year for you, but like is like, hey, I had a good time with this, and so it is what it is. I don't know if there's anything that jumps to mind for you. I don't want to put you on the spot if you don't have anything.
Well, I think, shit. It didn't make it my top 10. Top 10. I tried to
spread the love. Maybe find an opportunity to talk about it somewhere along the way.
Yeah,
I did the same thing too. Those were, for the most part, films where I'm just like, I had a great time with this, but it doesn't really wow me in any one particular aspect, even though I enjoyed the experience.
Okay, so fun movies that I enjoyed this year, that just right off the cuff, because I didn't populate this in the script. I enjoyed Mortal Kombat.
All right.
I enjoyed that movie. I'm not going to talk about it in the quote air quote award ceremony of 2021, but I enjoyed the shit out of that show or movie.
Sure.
I enjoyed Kong. I thought that was
Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah,
punchy, and then here's a spoiler: Mecha Godzilla comes into the fray. It's pretty fucking cool.
That's cool, right?
It was entertaining, right? You had a good time with it.
Yeah, I had a good time with Resident Evil. Okay, I thought that was low.
That's one I didn't see.
I'm bored on Sunday. I got an hour and a half to sit here and watch, which is potentially a very shitty thing. I got through with it. Yeah, it was still pretty shitty.
But as you said, you had a better time with it than you did with The Matrix, which is what we covered. So
yes. So, but I'm not going to talk about Resident Evil. So there are things that we watched that were still entertaining that wouldn't have got talked about. So yeah, I mean, we consumed a lot of, we're in a ridiculously crowded time for content. There is
definitely no doubt
unbelievable amount of just a plethora of content that you can just watch or consume at any given moment. And it's overwhelming. I mean, you don't know. Oftentimes, you can spend an hour just fucking clicking through Netflix, waiting to see what you're going to watch. You know what I'm saying? Like you can spend an hour trying to find something to watch because you're just overwhelmed by all the choices. Well,
I mean, I actually think that's a great place for us to move into television, because television is where I personally struggle to make time, because there is so much content out there, and films are roughly 2 hours a piece. Those are digestible to me. Like I can, I can spend an evening watching a film. I can watch a few films in the span of a week, even. I just did it, for example. But a TV show, that's an investment of time, and I'm not always watching. I mean, obviously, I'm watching old films too, but like I spent most of 2021, I feel like, probably watching The West Wing. You know what I mean? Like, so that's obviously not going to be in my favorite shows of 2021, unless you would include that, of just shows I watched, period. But it's not a 2021 television show. So TV shows for me are really where I struggle, because even Netflix alone is putting something out like basically every week, and the streaming services just keep increasing, and I don't think I've watched a single show on Paramount Plus, for example, or Peacock, but HBO Max. But
I'd like to.
There's always an HBO.
I'd like to fucking watch Yellowstone.
Yellowstone. I mean, I'm not a huge Trekkie, but there's fucking 900 Star Trek shows that you could watch if you were. So there's just a vast wealth of content out there, and I'm pretty good about the Disney Plus shows. I'm good about the Marvel shows. I'm good about the Star Wars shows for the most part. But beyond that, like it's hard. It's really setting aside the time to commit to something where it's kind of, sometimes it's more of an unknown. It's just like, is it going to be worth 6, 8, 10 plus hours of my life invested in this?
And that's
sometimes
what
it is. Sometimes you get a Chernobyl, and like you're
blown away.
You're blown away, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes you're not. and so
And then you're left with, wow, 10 hours.
it's gone.
It's gone.
Evaporated, so yeah, television's tough. But anyway, I think
But when television lands, I feel like there's nothing more rewarding than like a Chernobyl.
It's, a long form storytelling, like
in film. Yes. It's fucking awesome.
Films can't hope to accomplish what a really, really well constructed TV show can. Like, they're just really different mediums ultimately.
Yeah,
and
for
that's why we consider them separate, is because it's just such a different type of format. So when you can really take advantage, then yeah, it hits deeper. It sits with you longer. Maybe you're even living with it week to week. Depending on how it's being distributed. Like if you're sitting with something for 2 months, or even longer, or even shorter for that matter, like. It might impact you just that much more, that much more. So anyway, I think maybe that's enough chit chat.
Preamble.
Maybe it's time.
Let's get into it.
To do it. I think we'll start, and I don't know if we have a great option for this particular category. It's worst television show. I think that in years past, we've had some pretty obvious contenders. From the final season of Game of Thrones to Andrew's COVID-induced state while watching
Fever Dream,
Raised by Wolves.
Jesus Christ, which got to season 2 this year, I think.
I don't know if it's out yet, but it's coming out soon.
Okay.
So make sure you tune back in and let us know how it is. For my money, I didn't really, because I think I was choosy, because I really, I knew that. Well, that looks bad. I'm not going to fucking waste my time with it. There was only like. Really one show for me that was like, that didn't really do a whole lot for me. But it's really not a bad TV show, so it feels weird to say like this is the worst TV show of the year. I think that's almost a misnomer. It's maybe the most disappointing TV show of the year for me. But anyway, maybe you have a different experience. I actually think you watched more TV than I did. Maybe I'm incorrect in that statement, but is there anything?
No. So I did watch probably more TV than you. Watched of course you got your not your sitcoms, but you got your live stuff, The Bachelor.
Sure. Right. You have a healthy dose of reality TV, thrown in there.
Yeah. But I don't factor those into these conversations.
Yeah, it almost feels unfair to be like, yeah, this was a really down year of The Bachelor. I thought The Bachelor was a prick.
Everything that I watched was pretty decent. I've got disappointing. I mean, if you want to say,
what's the most? Let's reframe this category on the spot. I have the executive authority to do this. But you know why? Because we run the show and we can do whatever the fuck we want.
We're gonna
there are no
retitle
rules.
Most disappointing show of 2020.
I think that in the years to come there may be a reason to bring back worst television show as there have been in years past. But yeah, most disappointing. What was the most disappointing show for you this year, you think?
The most disappointing show for 2021 for me is I'm going to say He-Man. Okay. I know it got a lot of positive reviews. It wasn't inherently bad. It's just not what I wanted.
Now, and obviously you're more than entitled to your choice. I didn't watch it, He-Man, for the record. Uh-huh. Did the second part of that actually ever come out? Because it was only wasn't it like a part one, released in a certain batch of episodes, and then they were going to do more later on?
Like 4 episodes or so. And
okay.
And I can also say that I was disappointed with I think the 4th season of You. I think it's the 4th season that came out this year.
Whatever the latest season was, though.
Yeah, the latest season of You. I was just pretty disappointed with it. It just felt contrived. I didn't really enjoy it. I mean, I enjoyed. Don't get me wrong; it was okay, but the shows that are in my top 5 just blew my socks off in one way or another. You know what I mean? So,
right. Yeah. I mean, I think talking about a latest season of something is a really. That's a really easy example because where the standard is, and if it falls off the standard, then it's disappointing.
Bingo.
So
yeah.
So that's an easy one.
What was
to
your
talk
choice?
About, but I think The Undoing is one for me that
Oh, I never watched.
by
that. I don't
the
even know
end
what that- I don't know what that is.
was just kind of nothing for me. It was an HBO miniseries, I think 6 episodes, with Nicole Kidman and Hugh Grant.
Yeah, okay.
Where there's a woman that gets murdered, and maybe Hugh Grant is involved in it because they had some sort of connection, and so it's about unraveling the mystery of who killed this woman. And I feel like it was one of those shows that Anna and I just like binged the fuck out of, like we were so invested in it. Yeah, it was like, it's a murder mystery. We like murder mysteries. Like, that's interesting to us. And then by the end, I was just like, oh, okay, all right. And we moved on, and I look back on it and I think this is the kind of show I look back on and I'm like, yeah, I could have used those 6 hours elsewhere. I really could have done anything else with those and I probably would have been better off for it, and it's not that it was so bad that I felt insulted by it. It just never
amounts to a lot. Yeah.
It never amounted to anything super worthwhile in my estimation. It was pretty to look at. It was entertaining in the moment, but it was kind of nothing at the end. So I throw it out there as kind of the one for me that I'm just like, every other show that I watched, I understand why I did it, even if I didn't love it, or I really fucking loved it and I soaked up every second of it. This one to me is really not obviously in either of those kind of categories. It's just fine, and it existed, and it was a time in my life when I watched it, and well, I guess I just have to accept it because it happened, but doesn't mean I have to be happy about it.
No.
So anyway, let's go on to happier things. Let's talk about some of our top TV of the year, top television shows of the year. Before we get into our top 5 ranked in order, do you have any honorable mentions
I've got honorable
that you couldn't
mentions
quite fit into the top 5? Okay.
No particular order.
Sure. So what do you got for honorable mentions?
All right. So Castlevania season 4. I thought it was an incredible show.
Yeah.
But like we talked about, there's a shit ton of stuff that came out. I think Castlevania, one of the seasons, probably the first season at least, made it into my top 5 television shows in years past. I think that this is one of the stronger seasons of Castlevania. I really, really enjoyed the definitive closing of Castlevania. I thought it was an excellent way to conclude the story. And they really hit it out of the park. If it wasn't for the top 5, it wouldn't take a whole... If one of the other shows in the top 5 fucked up in any sort of way, I think Castlevania would easily get slotted in there in one of the top 5.
All right. Yeah.
Loved it. WandaVision is I guess it is kind of in an order, I guess.
Okay.
It's turning out to be a little bit of an order.
This is effectively 6, 7, and potentially so on if there are any more. Is that kind of how you're feeling it? Okay.
I think WandaVision, the only reason WandaVision is lower or not on the top 5, in my opinion, is and it's not to its detriment. I guess it is kind of to its detriment, I guess. But it was just kind of really slow to get where it was going. Once it hit stride, I thought it was really interesting. But it took, like you say, if a television show is an investment of time and you view it in that way, episodes like 1 through 3, they were interesting. They were a different dynamic for Marvel. They were a different dynamic, period. Like, they were wildly different than anything I've ever watched. But episodes 1 through 3, I think were pretty. At least 1 through 3, I think it's at least 1 through 2 at the very least. It was just slow to get going. Once it got going, it was good, and it was wildly different and creative. And I think it's definitely worth a mention. And then the last one is What If. What If is wildly inconsistent with a really compelling show. I think that it never, I don't think it ever really sucks or anything else, but it definitely peaks and then it'll fall back down. You know what I mean?
Highs and low lows.
Exactly.
I think, for What If.
Yeah, it's wildly inconsistent. When it hits cool. I think the concept is incredible. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but it is inconsistent. And so with that being said, those are my 3 honorable mentions for shows.
Okay. All right, I only have 2 honorable mentions. The first is a documentary. I think maybe a watch, review, repeat first, at least as far as I am concerned, for my purposes, I guess. 9/11, One Day in America.
Oh, yeah, I remember you watched that, yeah.
Documentary miniseries that is on Hulu. I think it's a National Geographic production, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously I watched it around the time of 9/11. It's a really, really incredible look at the events of 9/11, the terrorist attacks on 9/11, through the use of a lot of archival footage. There's a lot of interviews with survivors, and it's just a really, really powerful depiction of one of the worst days in American history. So it's a hard watch. It's a tough watch, obviously, especially if, you were impacted in some discernible way, obviously beyond, even beyond just like living in the country. Like we were kids, I think for me, it was important to watch this because it helped me, I think, understand what it would be like to be an adult and or even a teenager, even really, and be able to understand the impact of what something like this is, what it meant and how it affected the country moving forward. Whereas when I was a kid, I don't think I really got it. I don't think I really understood, other than this is a bad thing that happened. And so it really, really puts things into perspective. So it's very, very powerful, very, very powerful documentary to watch. And on the other hand, my other honorable mention, which is very much not about that, much more about escapism and crazy out there shit, Star Wars Visions is an honorable mention for me. I think that, like What If, it had its ebbs and flows, with certain episodes being better than others. But when it hit, and it had some really, really fucking amazing episodes in the bunch, like some really, really interesting, visions of what Star Wars could be. And I think that those were so cool, and I'm like, I want a full animated series of this, with a few of the episodes that they did. But I think, like you said, the top 5 for me, like, something has to give, something has to get pushed out, and so I think that it just didn't do enough. It wasn't as consistent enough as it needed to be to crack the top 5, because those top 5 shows were consistent in a way that Star Wars Visions was not. So even though its highs absolutely matched anything in the top 5, probably, it had weak points that held it back. So that's why I put it as an honorable mention, but that's where I stand on that. So let's have some fun with this. Let's do a little trade-off. Let's start at number 5 for our top 5 television shows of 2021, and let's see where we land. So what do you have for number 5?
I've got Loki. Loki's sitting in number 5.
And I think it's probably worth saying, I think we're going to have a lot of crossover here, but not necessarily in terms of where they're ranked. So Loki's in my top 5, but it's not number 5. But why is Loki number 5 for you?
Same thing we talked about is consistency. Loki had some consistency issues between episodes, I think. What Loki did, though, Loki opened up the MCU in such a ridiculously large way that's going to ripple throughout the rest of the MCU in
for a long time.
For a long time. Forever, really. I mean, they used Loki as a method to open up to move their horizon a little bit further. You know what I mean? And so the events of Loki are
to really set the stage for Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, anything really. Anything goes kind of moving forward.
So with that being said, it's a super important show to watch for MCU purposes, and overall, it's a really well done show. I mean, it's out there, it's wild, it's crazy, it's a lot of fun, it's funny, it's well shot. There's some emotional beats in it, and it's thoughtful. It's a lot of care was taken into Loki, and it shows. This year is better with Loki. So Loki's number 5 for me.
Loki is number 5 for you. Number 5 for me is something from your honorable mentions. It's Castlevania Season 4.
It's a good choice. I can't argue with it. It's a good choice.
yeah, it really stuck the landing. I think what, very importantly for that show, which I think went through a little turmoil with Warren Ellis being his shitty self, evidently. It felt like, okay, what's going on with this show? They basically already had this in production. They put it out, and it ends up being like a really, really nice wrap up of a really, really great 4-season television series. I mean, as it turned out, season one is
excellent.
Season 1 is very short. Season 2 is a big fucking deal. It expands, and Dracula, all that good stuff, Alucard. Season 3 is kind of the fallout of season 2, and then season 4 is building back up to a crescendo and having this big kind of resolution, everything with some really larger than life type things happening in it. But very in a really, really compelling fashion that brings the characters, back together in a really interesting fashion from Trevor to Sypha to Alucard. Yeah, I mean, it did it with scope, it did it with spectacle, it did it, it was no holds barred, wrapping up everything in that series. And it did a really, really great job of balancing it all and doing it satisfactorily, which, not to beat on the Game of Thrones drum, but it's easier said than done, obviously. Some shows do not stick the landing.
Is it easier said than done, though?
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I just think that...
I guess I don't write anything, so I guess I don't know. But it seems like if you have an idea, like you have a story in mind...
I mean, if you have a beginning, a middle, and an end,
all stories should have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
And I guess to be fair, Game of Thrones probably had an end at some point. They just forgot to fill out the middle enough to get there.
I don't want to end. No end. I don't want it.
But anyway, Castlevania had a very, very deliberate, obviously, manner in which it set out to reach its conclusion, and it did it well. So it's a number 5 for me. So just it's a hard hitting show. I mean, obviously, you need to have watched the prior 3 seasons to appreciate what season 4 does. But if you have, and you're in for the ride at that point, and it's your thing.
Excellent.
It nails it. It really does.
And
so
there's no better time because the episodes are so short. Like, if you've never watched Castlevania and you think you might be predisposed, you have to be predisposed to it. That has to be said.
It's not for everyone. Yes.
If you are predisposed to it, I mean, like, the whole endeavor would cost you like one season of any of the other shows that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, you could blaze your way through all of Castlevania in a week. No problem. Like, if you wanted to.
You'll come home from work invigorated to see what happens next. Like, it's a super compelling show.
Yeah.
Actually, you have me questioning my ranking.
That's okay. You could stick to your guns. You already basically said it. You said it was effectively number 6. It's knocking on the door, but Loki was there. What, you gonna push Loki out? No, you can't do that to Loki. It's fucked up. He'd kill you.
Loki's important. You got to keep Loki.
Yeah, you got to keep him there. What do you got for number 4?
Number 4, I have Hawkeye.
Hawkeye. All right.
I think Hawkeye was a wildly consistent show. Every episode was consistently good. I don't think it necessarily like blew anything out of the water. Like, there was no like holy shit. Like, no. I guess there was a couple holy shit moments, but it felt like maybe those holy shit moments are just like fandom kind of things.
Yes, more. I think the holy shit moments in Hawkeye were not because of Hawkeye itself, but because of what it meant for MCU fans. I think that we're dancing around spoilers there. Yeah. But listen to our full episode with Enrique to understand. I think probably the more specifically what we're getting at in terms of like how it ties in with the MCU and what the holy shit moments are. So yeah.
With that being said, it is a very consistent show. It felt like Marvel's first like holiday. Like, this felt like hey, we're here to stay for television series and stuff, and this is your holiday show for this year. You know what I mean? And it felt good. Like, that's awesome. I'd take a holiday show. I mean, it's a Christmas show.
Yeah,
with Hawkeye. And it expands on Hawkeye in a huge way. Cliff Barton on his character, and through and through, it's well written, it's well acted, and Haley Steinfeld is great.
Yes.
Very, very incredibly cool
Yes.
actress
Yes.
to play the role of
Kate Bishop.
Haley Steinfeld. Yeah, whatever. Kate Bishop, that's it. It was awesome. It was an awesome show. Thoroughly enjoyed it. No low points, no lulls. Every episode, you're watching like we talked about before, you're watching what seems to be a long-form story told in one consistent piece. And that's what you get. You get one consistent story that there's no whiplash or anything else. You can watch it back to back to back to back, and it feels like one consistent thing. It's very good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's number 4.
My number 4 is Loki. I think for all the reasons you stated, I think that the way that it paves the way for the MCU moving forward is obviously a pretty big fucking deal. But I also think that Loki stands on its own 2 legs, even without, thinking about kind of the bigger implications of it. Tom Hiddleston is charming as ever. Owen Wilson is
Wilson. I didn't even talk about Owen fucking Wilson. He was so good.
He gives a wow-worthy performance in it. Truly, truly awesome. Sophia DiMartino, who plays Lady Loki, Sylvie, she is brilliant. I don't even know. I don't think I knew her prior to this show. I thought she was excellent. It did fun, weird, out there, timey-wimey things. It was just always interesting every episode. I think that its weakness is that some episodes were better than others. None of them were bad, but some were better than others. It had some really, really great episodes, but on the whole, I think that the other 3, for my money, were just a little bit more consistent. And that's really the only reason I think that I even have Loki as low as it is, if you want to put it that way, is that I think that it stands toe to toe with pretty much anything that I have on the rest of my list, but I had to draw the line somewhere. So Loki's really fucking good, is what I'm saying, is really what I'm trying to emphasize. I gotta say, I'm curious to hear your next 3, because obviously I don't know what you picked. I don't think we really said that, but like, we don't know what each other decided. We do this independently, so we find out at the same time as we're doing it live. And then
we get a situation like I'm sitting right now, where I didn't talk about Castlevania season 4 beforehand. I just think about it briefly because I have to think about an entire year's worth of shit. Effectively half an hour.
Yeah, here's a peek behind the curtain. We sat down and we have the list of categories, and what I did is I compiled a list of movies and TV shows that I had seen this year, and I was just like, you look through the list, you're like, God damn it, man. God damn it. So you just stare at it for like a half hour, an hour, you're just like, God damn it. And you're like, I think this might be it. And then you look at the list and you're like, shit, but it could be that.
So half an hour is effectively spent staring at a list, and then it all starts with like one keystroke. Okay, I'm just gonna dump these in here, and then I'm gonna switch them around for a couple minutes. And so that's what I did. Anyways, we get left with a situation like this, where number 3 for me is Visions, Star Wars Visions.
Okay.
I look back on it, and I think of the Ronin episode.
Yeah,
I think of
iconic.
I think of the Mega Man sort of episode where I was dreading
TOB1.
It. Yes, TOB1.
And they got you.
Where
it got you, didn't it?
Yeah, I was dreading watching it. Fucking hate Mega Man, and I'm gonna hate this shit too. It looks just like Mega Man. And it's fucking great. It was so good.
It was still Mega Man as fuck, but it was great.
And then you think about the episode where that girl was surrounded by Sith. She thought she was doing the right thing. She got surrounded by Sith, and that was fucking so cool.
Yeah.
And so when it hits so awesome. It does so much for the Star Wars universe. Things that we've never been able to see. I've never read anything like anything in Visions before. It's always been typical Star Wars stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You think about the episode where where that boy and that girl go to that planet, and or that girl goes to the planet, and that lady defends the town from the Sith.
Yes. Yep.
Oh, it's fucking so cool. She had like booster high heels or some shit. And then the bunny rabbit episode with the I don't know why you got a bunny rabbit with a Dragon Ball Z power thing. That's cool, but the episode was so emotional. So
Japanese animation. That's just how it goes. You just roll with it.
That's how it goes. But I've always appreciated different studios coming together for one project to tell different stories, and then presenting it in one show or one medium or whatever. I've always liked that. Batman had a really cool one. The Dark Knight had one a long time ago. Can't remember what it was called. But same thing. Like 5 Japanese studios came together to make Batman stories, and it was awesome. It was so cool. And I've always liked that idea. Was never exposed to anything like this before. I don't think anything before has existed. It wasn't always consistent, but I'm willing to go out on a leg to say that. I'm willing to go out on a limb to say that the episodes that I didn't find compelling, I imagine there's people out there that would find those episodes compelling.
Right, like that was their shit. Sure.
Right. So with that being said, Visions is my number 3. It flipped everything that I've ever known Star Wars to be on its head. And when it landed for me, I think it landed for me in a really awesome way. It was really fucking cool to see some of these episodes. And actually I have a book based off of one of those episodes. It was a Christmas present from Enrique.
This is true. You got a little Ronin book adorning your bookshelf, I'm sure.
Excited to read it. I just think it's a really cool deal.
Yeah. Well, for the third consecutive time, I'm gonna talk about a show that you've already actually mentioned. My number 3 is WandaVision. Because, WandaVision was the first of these Marvel Cinematic Universe, Marvel Studios, Disney Plus shows. And, we didn't really know what to expect with it. We knew it was going to be kind of like different and weird. And, the fun, the joy of these Disney Plus shows is the opportunity to explore characters who are not getting their own feature films. There's no Scarlet Witch film. There's no Vision film. And in fact, there's probably no Vision film because he's fucking dead at the start of WandaVision, So it's a weird ass place to start with the show. And this show starts in a weird ass way with a period sitcom type thing for a few episodes. For you, I think it was charming, but like, what is this is probably a valid question to be asked.
Well, just other episodes, other shows kind of just hit the ground running. You know what I mean?
Right. It expects you to invest at least 4 episodes before you know what the fuck is happening. It expects that of you. And I think that we did it, and we enjoyed it. I mean, they put, well, clearly I did too. It's my number 3. But they put out, I think, the first 2 episodes together, maybe the first 3 even. I can't remember exactly. But it was very clearly like we understand that if we put this first episode out, it's not necessarily reflective of what the show itself is going to be. And to be fair, that's kind of true of most of the episodes. Like, each episode had its such distinct feel and style, obviously riffing on a particular sitcom era. That's what I liked about it, is actually what I would say. It was, in the long run,
awesome.
like,
it's really cool.
I fully agree that if you're watching it week to week, as you were with some of those, and I, this is a show that I think you have to watch the whole package to appreciate it all. Because
you have to.
Because I think that each episode is not reflective of the whole. Necessarily, that means that some episodes are going to be better than others. Like, I liked this sitcom era better than the other one. Like, the Bewitched one with the magic show I thought was hilarious, and that was one of my favorite ones. And like the Malcolm in the Middle one was like fine. Or the Modern Family one was like fine. Purely in terms of we're riffing on this particular era. But I think as a whole, I think, well, Elizabeth Olsen is wonderful, is what I'll say. I really, really like her. I've always liked her as Wanda, as the Scarlet Witch. And I think this show did a lot to explore the grief that character has experienced throughout her time in the MCU, and I think really a really poignant way. I think that it gives Paul Bettany an opportunity to be very charming, very comedic, and have fun with his role in a way that He's been playing a sort of emotionless robot for a while. You know what I mean? It gives him an opportunity to have a sort of experience with the role that he had previously been unable to have. And I think the two of those together just have great chemistry and really put something like really special together. And you had, of course, you know, the moment of this, I suppose, is another spoiler, but Agatha all along, you know, like that was a big pop culture moment when it came out, you know, and it was great. I think, you know, even if it ended as a pretty traditional MCU type confrontation with people flying around and shooting shit at each other and punching each other a bit, I don't know. By the time it built to that point, I was still satisfied with the whole of it. And I loved how it played with the TV structure. You know, it's the first MCU thing, and it still is to this point the only MCU thing that I think has really, 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 really taken advantage of the TV format in a big way. I think the others have just been, I mean, Falcon, we haven't really talked about that. Falcon and the Winter Soldier is a movie split into 6 parts. A long movie split into 6 parts. An okay movie split into 6 parts. Loki is not that way. Loki's episodic. Hawkeye's a little episodic too. But, you know, they're kind of more traditional, I think, in terms of their storytelling structure. And WandaVision is not. It's totally different. Typical. And I think I love that uniqueness about it. But I can understand that it may not be for everyone. You know what I mean? Like, it's weird, it's different, and it's out there. For me, it felt fresh and unique and really captivating. So for me, it ended up at number 3. I really loved what it brought to the table, you know, and especially as that first one out the gate, you know, it just felt like you know, Kevin Feige and company were putting out something special with it. Like, it felt like a labor of love to me. So number 3 it is. All right, winding down. What's number 2 for Andrew?
I don't know if you saw it or not. If you haven't seen it, you need to watch it because it's fucking incredible.
I don't know if I've seen 2 or 1 for you. We'll see, I guess. But
Invincible.
I have not seen Invincible. Yeah, okay.
Invincible is unfucking real. It is so fucking good.
It's one I wanted to watch, meant to watch. We talked about covering. Didn't happen. But clearly it's pretty fucking good.
So good. There's a big reveal in the middle of it, which is just like jaw-dropping, mind-numbing. I think it happens in like episode 2. Actually, it happens fairly early on, and then it just escalates in such a big way. Really, really, really good show. Excellent cast. I think it's got J.K. Simmons in it as Invincible. Not as Invincible, as Omni-Man.
Omni-Man, I think Stephen Yeun, I believe, is Invincible.
As Invincible, that's right.
Yeah.
Real good show. Highly recommend. And it's on Amazon Prime. Everybody can watch it. Just about everybody's got Amazon Prime, I imagine. It's actually one of the only shows that I've actually watched on the platform. But anyways, absolutely incredible.
Okay.
Especially in a year with no boys, right? There's no boys to fill a slot, so we got to give it to an incredibly brutal.
Right. It's a similar sort of thing, right? Superhero, violent, you know, but animated and different and apparently good, like you said. So, yeah. All right. You ready for my number 2?
What is it? Let's see it.
My number 2, to continue the pattern, is something you've mentioned. Hawkeye. Hawkeye ends at number 2 for me.
It's a good one. It's good.
I think Hawkeye is the most complete package that was offered by Marvel Studios on Disney+. I think as much as I've said nice things about Loki and as much as I've said nice things about WandaVision, Hawkeye is the most consistent start to finish. And I think that, I mean, yes, it needs to be good in the first place. If you're consistent and you're bad, you're just consistently bad. That's not a good thing. Hawkeye is consistently good start to finish, and I think that's what nudges it for me ever so slightly above the WandaVisions, the Lokis, because
it was the highest. To be fair, it was the highest ranking Marvel television show for me.
Yeah, that's true. So I guess we effectively agree on that. It's so much fun. Is kind of a good starting point of talking about it. The Christmas theme was wonderful. It was very joyous, especially as Christmas approached. Watching it, that was great fun. But more than that, it's just a really, really tight, compelling show about two people in very different places in their lives coming together and working together and coming out on the other side somewhat changed, I think, overall. You got Clint Barton, he's an Avenger. He's Hawkeye. And you got Kate Bishop, and I think putting the two of those together, and really particularly Jeremy Renner, who I think is at his best playing Clint through the MCU to this point, and Haley Steinfeld, who is a brilliant, brilliant talent that Marvel is lucky to have, and she's just genuinely fun to watch, just really, really good as Kate. So authentic and fun and charming in that role. Putting those two together, it just makes for a winning team. It's fun, it's fresh, it's nothing we'd seen from the MCU to that point. It's giving a lot of nuance to character that we've seen and giving a lot of nuance to a new character while also hitting on like really interesting and important topics like being hard of hearing and what that's like in deafness, and just the way that it synthesized all of its elements into a pretty tight 6-episode package I thought was just really, really impressive, where all the action was creatively shot and interesting. The plot developments, takes place over a pretty short span of time, is interesting, and it always has forward momentum, and it ends right. It ends in a good way. It ends in a nice, satisfying way. It has those MCU surprises that we talked about, that you can again listen to our full episode and get the specifics of that, and it all comes together as just this just fucking great little package. Like, Hawkeye to me is maybe the most rewatchable of the shows, I think. Like, churn this out every Christmas season, fine. I mean, we talked about it when we recorded on it. Like, I could see myself watching this, every few Christmases, just having fun with it. Whereas
I agree with you.
I think your WandaVisions and your Lokis are going to be a little harder Falcons. They're going to be harder sells on that front. I don't think you can watch those.
Rewatch Falcon. I don't think so.
Right. Like maybe I will at some point, but like when Captain America 4 is about to roll out, but like that's probably it. So yeah, it really was something special for me, Hawkeye. Just so perfectly consistently perfect. Maybe not perfect, but really good.
And
Really
how awesome
good.
to lean into the Christmas time of the release, right?
I think that helps it. I'm not saying that's why it's as high as it is, but it's
cool.
It's
new,
cool,
it's
and it's so much fun, and it's different for what the MCU is.
And
like,
what better character to give that angle to? Out of all the superheroes, out of all the Avengers, he's the only family man.
Give it to the family man. Exactly. It's perfect.
It's perfect.
It's fucking perfect. It's just.
Cheers to that. We said that shit at the same time.
Clink. Yes, virtual clink. Yes. But yeah, that's so.
Number one.
We're at number one. What's number one for you?
I don't think you ever watched it.
I don't think so either. I don't think you watched my number one either to match you there. But what do you got?
My number one is Made.
Okay. All right. I wondered if this would stack up somewhere in there. I feel like you said really, really nice things about it when you had watched it. So
dude.
So tell me about Made.
Let me tell you about Made. Made struck a chord with me personally. Like you ever watch anything and it's like you can just see aspects of your life on screen.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you can personally identify with an art in some way or aspect. And that was present in Made. So it felt personal. It was made personal, sounded like the person that wrote it's based off a book that got turned into this, and it sounded like that person, it was based off their life. It's so incredibly real. It's short, it's tight. It doesn't end terrible. It doesn't end super awesome either. It's just a glimpse into one aspect, a one snippet of somebody's life during one section of their life. And it's just a real thing, and it feels it's just so well acted, so authentic, and I was truly blown away. Every episode, I think I wept. Every episode, I'm pretty sure. I mean, it's not like 64 episodes or anything like that. I think it's like 8. But really, really, really impactful show. Well shot, well acted. The score is good. It's just tour de force. It's a tour de force show. It's not Chernobyl, but I would say, like, if I had to say, like, best shows I've ever watched, right? You got Chernobyl. Chernobyl's way the fuck up there. Absolutely incredible show. Watchmen, incredible show. I think I watched that this year, but I can't talk about it because it's not part of this year's thing. I did finally watch Watchmen this year, and it blew me away. You've got the True Detective Season 1. Ridiculous fucking show. So good. Made is now up there with the upper echelon of super awesome shows that lean into the medium of long-form storytelling through the visual medium. It just fucking lands it. So good. So that's Made's my number one for sure this year.
All right. Well, my number one, I think, to match you, not to outdo you, obviously, I think is a show that you did not watch, but it is one that I obviously talked about earlier in the year. Mayor of Easttown.
I think I knew that deep down.
On HBO. You might have had a suspicion. I knew Made was going to come up for you at some point. I hadn't heard it to this point. I was just like, all right, it's a question of, did he forget that he watched it, or is he saving it?
When you talked about your murder mystery that you didn't like,
yeah,
you know what murder mystery he praised?
You're exactly right. Mayor of Easttown is the antithesis to The Undoing. It's the murder mystery that stuck the landing. It's the one that, when I look back on it, I think, God damn, that was fucking good. I think that was well worth my time. Kate Winslet is brilliant. She plays Mare, who's the titular character. She's a detective investigating this murder and unraveling it. And, it's in a small town outside of... It's a fictional small town, but basically in Pennsylvania, in a neighboring county of Philadelphia. So that aspect of it appealed to me, obviously, just like the familiarity of the setting. But really, it comes down to amazing performances and a really, really compelling plot. And it's all really well shot. I think that, is obviously a big part of it too. But Kate Winslet is so amazing in this. She's fucking talented, is what I'll say. But I mean, I think the supporting cast in this, I think, also deserves a lot of credit. Julianne Nicholson plays like her best friend, and she is another person I'm not really familiar with as an actor, but she brought it. Jean Smart plays her mother, who, and I think you finally watched the Watchmen show. She was Laurie in that. She's fucking awesome in this.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And Evan Peters, who was also in WandaVision, as not Pietro, was awesome here. He was great. One of the best drunk performances of all time. If you told me that man was smashed before he came on camera, but still managed to get his lines out, I would fully believe you. But the plot is very interesting, the way that it builds. I think there's a few layers to the plot of, like, here's this thing going on in this corner.
How many episodes?
In this corner. I think it's 7, actually.
6 or 7 episodes?
I think it's 7. It's 7. So it's I think a limited series right now. I wouldn't be surprised if they do more, if they, have another mystery or something like that set up and kind of keep the principal cast around. But yeah, it's a compelling story, and I think that everyone feels like real people. Oh, also Guy Pearce is in this.
No way.
There's that. Guy Pearce is in this. He's kind of
fucking sold.
He's more on the periphery in terms of, like, he's an important character in it, but he's not like he's an outsider to the town is kind of how his character is. But the way that everything kind of builds to where it all ultimately pays off, it gets you invested in the personal lives of all these characters, and so that when when things all come together, it has that much more impact because it's a small town. Everyone knows each other, and so who did this thing? Like it's probably someone you know. You know what I mean? It's probably someone that someone knows, and so that's going to have some pretty understandable consequences on like the personal lives of the people that
is it like a murder
come to be
mystery
invested
set
in.
in Zephyr Hills, Florida?
Yeah, I mean maybe on a slightly grander scale, but yeah, in effect, you know what I mean? Like
That's cool.
Like it would cause ripple effects for something of this scale to unfold in a small town in Zephyr Hills. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the thing about
It'd
it
be
is
fucking terrifying. I mean, if it's a murder mystery, I don't know how big of a murder it is, but like,
I mean,
is it serial killer level murder?
It's not serial killer. It's a one-off. It's a young mother, like a teenage mother basically, and she winds up dead. She shows up dead. That someone finds her body, and it's sets off a trail of, all right, what the fuck happened here, and unraveling that. As you're getting a look into these personal lives of all these people who knew her in some way, and who were, or if they didn't know her personally, they had some connection to her. Like everyone's related to someone or related to her. So
Yeah.
it all comes together. You know what I mean?
All right. I'll watch
a way
yours.
that's satisfying, much unlike The Undoing. The Undoing was not satisfying.
not watch
Mayor of
that.
Easttown is very satisfying. They're both on HBO,
We
so you
like
can watch
murder
both
mysteries,
of them. But
so I will.
But you should yeah, Mayor of Easttown. It hooks you in. I think even an episode and maybe two, like,
Is it slow?
you'll be in.
Is it wildly interesting, or is it?
I think by the end of episode 2, it gets to a point where
You're hooked.
it's given you enough threads that you're trying to put it together in your head. And you may not be right at that point. You may not have all the pieces. You may not have all the information that you need.
Gotcha.
But it's given you something that's pointing in a very specific direction. And you're like, all right, what does that mean? I need to know the next thing that happens.
We're in.
So then I can take that information and process it and figure out what we're doing here. So yeah, I highly recommend it to you, to anyone listening, obviously. I hope that I didn't. I think I managed to not spoil that one.
No, yeah.
So there's that.
Murder mystery.
But yeah, someone died, and Mayor's got to solve it. That's what it comes down to. So check it out on HBO. And I guess there you have it for our all of our television awards. We usually do a more limited section on the televisions because we tend to not watch as much, and I think it's easier to categorize the films and stuff like that. But yeah, that's television right there for 2021. I guess we'll have to wait and see what 2022 brings. We'll talk about that on the next episode, in fact. So why don't we move on and talk a lot about film right now? Does that sound like a plan to you?
Sounds good.
Alrighty then. So let's begin with the worst film of 2021. Oh, what do we have on our hands here? I feel like I've been asking you a lot. Do you want me to start this one? Should I kick it off? What do you want to do? Do you want to alternate? How are we doing this? You talk first. I talk first.
There's two worst films that I've seen.
Okay.
I've got two.
You've got two.
I'm gonna go with the worst one from the point of strictly from the perspective that it was longer, right? So you got a bad movie that's long.
All right.
If you got a bad movie, for the love of God, just make it short. You know what I mean? But
mercifully short. Yes, of course.
Yeah. So I put Matrix down as my worst film.
Okay.
For 2021.
I figured that would be in contention. What was your runner-up? Out of curiosity,
is
that was
detective movie with Jared Leto and Denzel Washington.
Sure.
It was just a lot shorter.
It was, it was shorter. All right, so obviously we've talked about The Matrix very, very recently. So
maybe there's a bias there. If you can tell me a worse.
Well, yeah, I mean, so for my money, I think we put The Matrix at fine on our rankings. We put it a cut above The Shithouse, so it wasn't the worst thing in the world.
Did we watch a Shithouse movie?
But I don't think we watched a Shithouse film that we covered in 2021. That we covered, keyword, because I have two contenders for the worst film of 2021, and neither of which we covered. My runner-up was Halloween Kills, which I thought was horrendous.
Okay.
And my actual winner was your runner-up, The Little Things is the name of that film you're talking about.
That's it. That one was
which I thought was fucking terrible. Like, The Matrix had some aspects of it that I found entertaining, even if it, on the whole, was not what I was looking for. The Little Things was just dog shit from beginning to end, bolstered by Denzel, just Denzeling about. Fine, do your thing, my dude. That's fine.
Right.
Rami Malek being fucking horrendous. Rami Malek being a horribly miscast detective, and then the worst. I mean, actually, I think Rami Malek put the worst performance in, but Jared Leto is by far the worst of the cast. So by default, he has to be the one person that really
Malek
anchors
didn't do
it down.
a very good job in 2021.
No, not
Rami Malek.
Not really.
He didn't. No, he did. He did a pretty. Which is. Do you think he's just miscast? Like
I think so. I think so.
Robot,
I think playing a loner weirdo was kind of his niche, and he was good at that. And I think that
why couldn't he have done that for a Bond villain?
Right, like The Little Things is not that, and so it was bad because he's just not. He's not credible as a fucking detective. He's just not, or like a really like oh, I solved this case because I'm like really smart and good at my job. It's like, well, I'm a little in over my head. He wasn't credible at that role. At least with Bond, he was playing a weirdo dude who was like obsessed with, with Swan. But that character was so all over the place in terms of motivations that I don't think that anyone could have done that a whole lot of favors. But he was just kind of doing his I'm a weirdo shtick, and it didn't really work. It wasn't menacing for that character. It didn't make you fearful of that character. It just made you think, oh, this movie's better when this guy's not on screen. It's kind of how I felt about that. Whereas The Little Things, anytime he was on screen, it made the film actively worse, and then everything else about it was bad too. So it was just a very big combination of many, many bad things coming together to form what, in my assessment, was the worst film of 2021. And Jared Leto was really fucking awful in it. So there's that too.
Man. Jared Leto.
But anyway, Matrix, I think is
Jared Leto
is fair.
He's got his lane.
He's got his lane. I concur. I don't like the man personally, but that's not to say that he cannot act. You know what I mean? But I think it has to be very, very specific types of roles. And if you let him run wild too much, he's untamable, and it takes everything down a notch. I think The Little Things had some aspects of that, and actually, it's not completely unrestrained Jared Leto. I think House of Gucci is the prime example of Jared Leto being allowed to do whatever the fuck he wants and being terrible at it.
Do you think he's just one of those actors that's do you think he's for lack of a better term, do you think he's Ben Stiller in Tropic Thunder as an actor? I want my fucking TiVo, you know what I'm saying? Do you think he's one of those guys, or do you think he's just completely out there method? Or do you think he's a Robert Downey Jr. Tropic Thunder, or do you think he's a Ben Stiller Tropic Thunder?
I think that he's more of a Robert Downey for me. I think he's so up his own ass that everything he thinks everything he does is art, or it's about the message, man. That's
the man playing the man who did.
He absolutely strikes me as a man who would go under pigmentation surgery to play a black man and not realize that that's problematic in many sorts of ways. See Dallas Buyers Club, where he plays a transgender woman. And I think at the time that film was made, people gave him a lot of credit for putting in a good performance. And yes, fair, I think it was a good performance. But I think these days people can look at that, they could look at that and think, well,
why not just cast a transgender woman?
What a great idea. Let's just cast a trans woman to
It's like
very
casting
authentically
a
played
old man
a
to
trans
play
woman.
an old man.
Yeah, well, easier said than
Or
done if you're Ridley Scott. Obviously, there's
Cast
that.
an
But
Italian to play a Gucci person, right?
I mean, yeah, or just at least not make them have to put on a Mario flavored accent while they're doing their performance, if nothing else. Just a little Italian accent's fine. You don't have to go full Mario with it. It's fine. But yeah, that's my take on Jared Leto. He's definitely a Kirk
He's on your
Lazarus
shit list.
Type. He's always definitely on the shit list. That's for sure. He should be on anyone's shit list for. Was he sending used condoms on Suicide Squad? Like, fuck off, dude. Like, no.
What are you doing?
You just jacked off into those anyway. Don't fucking lie to me. I don't care about your millions of dollars. Please. Anyway, The Little Things was my worst film of 2021. Matrix was yours. Are we ready to move on? You have any other thoughts?
What was your most disappointing film?
My most disappointing film of 2021. I thought about The Matrix Resurrections long and hard for this particular category, but I think, as I've probably stated every time we've done this episode for whatever year, disappointing to me is it's a formula. It's expectations versus reality, right?
That's right. Who's to blame for it? Marketing? We always have the same discussion.
And I think, as we talked about on the Matrix episode, I don't think either of us had high expectations for it.
No, can't call it disappointing.
It's really not disappointing in that regard. The only reason I think it's disappointing is because I watched the Matrix trilogy beforehand and liked it a lot. Thought, okay, let's see what a fourth film brings. I know that there's been a mixed, response to this, but maybe it's got something in store for me. And then I understood why it got the response that it did. So it was a little disappointing in that respect, but it wasn't a really deflating type of disappointing or anything like that. And I wouldn't say that there was a hugely, hugely deflating or disappointing film this year for me, but I do think that Halloween Kills was the most disappointing film for me.
Wildly disappointing.
Because it was a big come down from the first one, from the sequel to the first one, I guess, or whatever. It's the same cast, same crew from Halloween, the 2018 film, and this one fucking sucked. It unabashedly was just bad. It was a bad film.
I never even watched it.
It was fucking free to watch on Peacock. And I got pretty bad reviews, so I think that, and I might have dissuaded you at some point too, I'm sure, even if you were tempted. But it kind of took a shit all over everything that like they tried to stand up for by making that direct sequel with Halloween 2018, and that wasn't a perfect film, but it was pretty good. They did right by Michael Myers, they did right by Jamie Lee Curtis's Laurie Strode. This one, they just completely sidelined her character for the entire film and instead focused on a bunch of fucking idiots who, I felt like it was trying to be topical or like deliver some sort of message, but it was so heavy-handed and fucking stupid about all of it that it felt so hollow. And even though like Michael Myers' like savage kills were like fun and like visceral, like it all felt like it was for nothing. It felt like perfunctory wasting our time with yet another shitty slasher sequel. It felt like they were trying to pay credit to the many shitty Halloween sequels by delivering yet another shitty Halloween sequel.
Shitty Halloween sequel.
and they did exactly that. So it sucks because I thought that we could have a nice, succinct Halloween sequel trilogy that follows up on that really, really amazing first one, and they've kind of fucked it already. So that's not to say that they can't right the ship and deliver a satisfactory ending, but this doesn't make me hopeful. So that was my most disappointing. What was yours?
The Eternals.
All right. Okay.
So I wanted the Eternals to be something just on completely next level, major scale.
Right. Sure.
And I mean, it felt like maybe they tried. I don't know.
It had ambitions that it didn't quite live up to, I think, overall.
That's right. So we went into a lot of detail on it.
We did.
And it just, I don't know. It just didn't quite land where I wanted it to land. or where
Yeah.
I expected it to land.
It's expectations versus reality, you know? Marvel is known for putting out good shit. Chloe Zhao delivered with Nomadland, right?
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
You put the two together, you feel like you're gonna be in for something really, really special.
Put the cast together.
The cast? Sure.
And it just turned out to be a meh.
Yeah, it's not exactly the sum of its parts.
No, definitely not.
And I didn't consider it here because I liked it, but I understand where the expectations were walking in. Right.
I liked it too. I thought it was a fine movie. Right? Like I'd watch it again if it was on.
But it was at best the third best Marvel movie we got this year. At best.
At best. Yes. And it could have been the most incredible Marvel movie that I've ever seen. You know what I mean? It could have been so much.
Sure.
And it just didn't live up to where I wanted it to be.
It was not that. That's true.
So
yeah, no arguments on that front. I think that makes sense. Yeah.
Most surprising. You want me to kick off most surprising?
Sure, have at it. What's the most surprising film of 2021 for you?
So I've got two.
You got two.
But I'm gonna say one with a runner up.
All right. What do you have?
So the most surprising movie for me was The Suicide Squad.
Okay. I think that's a good pick.
I was pretty fucking down on Suicide Squad.
Well, I mean, after Suicide Squad, not The Suicide Squad, again, to distinguish them very, 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 very clearly.
Yes.
That was before we begin this podcast, but we can guarantee that would have been shithouse tier. Had we recorded an episode on it back in the day when that came out, that's up there with The Wrinkle in Times and the Hellboys of this world. I think.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's fucking awful.
It just garbage, start to finish. Garbage.
This Suicide Squad was outrageously funny. It had some. It was a James Gunn.
It was good.
Team.
It was a good
James
movie.
Gunn team movie. Yeah, you got excellent jokes that land throughout the movie. Excellent humor. You've got emotionality peppered in there. I mean, you got a compelling villain who is also humorous because of what it is, right? You got a little bit of horror shit going on in there. It's just like a hodgepodge of James Gunn perfunctory. Is that a word, perfunctory?
It is a word. It is a word. Yes, it is.
And I think that describes Suicide Squad the best. It's a perfunctory of genres and characters and emotions and everything. It's an excellent movie, and at best, I expected it to be okay. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. My runner-up for this genre was, or this category was, The Mitchells versus the Machines.
Okay.
Animated movie picked up by fucking Netflix. Okay, like I mean, you know, I'm sure it's gonna be. I'm sure it's gonna be okay.
Yeah,
right?
it was a real out of nowhere. Holy shit, this is really good kind of film.
It was holy shit. This is really good. Out of nowhere. So those are my two Whiplash movies for the year.
Yeah, I think those are good picks. I think there's a lot of films this year that I had no expectations for that kind of blew me out of the water. So like there's a bunch that I could have qualified on that ground, like similar to the Mitchells. And the reason I have a different pick than the Suicide Squad is I expected James Gunn to deliver. So my expectations were set based on the Guardians films more than anything else. So that's why I didn't really think about it here.
And
But
throughout this movie coming out, or throughout Suicide Squad coming out, you were always much more higher up.
I think that's true. I think that's true. I think I had faith in James Gunn principally, whereas I think you were really thinking about that other Suicide Squad film, thinking,
shit.
"Fuck this,
Stupid
there's
idea.
no way."
I don't like it at all.
Yeah. Which is fair. I think it's fair. I went with another DC film by the name of Zack Snyder's Justice League. This was my most surprising film of 2021. I thought this would be unwatchable dreck. I thought this was going to be the biggest piece of shit, and it would make people think more fondly of Joss Whedon. As it turns out, Joss Whedon is the fucking worst, and Zack Snyder Well, he ain't exactly the best. He's apparently not so bad. He's apparently not so bad. This movie is too long. It's still not very good, but it is better than what we got theatrically with that original theatrical Whedon cut of Justice League. I think that I could see what Zack Snyder's vision for it was, and I still think it's a bad vision for Justice League, and it's not one that I really agree with, but I think for the most part, I think that it's a really, really consistent and tonally leveled version of what he was going for with the Justice League. So I stand surprised that Zack Snyder's vision of the Justice League, even though this isn't really his vision and he fixed it after the fact, blah, 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 and, he had the reshoots and whatever. The fact that it wasn't an unmitigated disaster was a success in and of itself. And I don't need them to restore the Snyderverse and all that bullshit because I'm done with it. I'm so done with it. But I gave this movie 4 hours of my life, and the fact that I didn't regret it is very surprising. So I come out with Zack Snyder's Justice League as my most surprising film because I don't know that I could put expectations more in the toilet than I did with this film. And I don't know that I could come out on the other side thinking, well, okay. All right. I guess I stand somewhat corrected in some ways. Now, the epilogue, that's indefensible. Jared Leto's performance there, indefensible. So
fucking
it's not
Jared
to say,
Leto, here he comes.
Here he comes. He's back again. If we had to go with worst performance, I could probably nominate him for 3 separate films this year, but we don't have that. We don't have a worst performance category. Maybe we should have meant it's Jared Leto. It's going to be Jared Leto every fucking time he's in a movie. Or Rami Malek, apparently. Rami Malek's in consideration, too. But Zack Snyder's Justice League had its issues. It was long. It was too long. Chapters had some real dumb names. But and the epilogue was some of the worst shit I've seen probably in general. It had the most ridiculous aspect ratio of anything that I've ever seen, and I somehow didn't hate it. That's an accomplishment. I didn't like it.
I just said 4:3 like it's a detriment to things. Lighthouse was shot in 4:3. It was totally fine.
Yeah, but that's a fucking. I mean, it's
an art house.
It's the Lighthouse. It's not the Justice League. Those are two very, very fundamentally different things we're talking about. Jesus. Zack Snyder. I still don't like him. He's better than Joss Whedon. I said that, but I still don't like him.
All right.
Anyway, let's move on to the best animated film of 2021. This is a tough year for animated films, I thought.
I wrote one down and I deleted it and put it another.
Well, all right. Okay. I think there's 4 films that in any given year, if the other films had not been released, could have been the best of the year. So I think there are 4 really, really strong animated films that we saw. We covered 3 out of the 4 with episodes. So I'm sure one of the 4 is what ended up winning for you. So I'll just say the 4, and then I'll ask you for your winner, and then I'll give you mine and see if we agree. I think Raya and the Last Dragon, Luca, The Mitchells vs. the Machines, and Encanto were all incredible animated films that we got this year.
I 110% agree with you.
All 4. Just fantastic for different reasons. Very, very different films. You've got 2 Disney animated films, a Pixar in there. You got a weird out of nowhere Sony animated one with Mitchells. And they're all so different, but also so good. So it made it for this. This is one of the toughest categories I think we had to come across this year. And usually that's not the case. I think there's usually a standout. Usually there's a soul or something, that stands apart from the pack. So what did you end up picking?
So I was going to pick Raya and the Last Dragon.
Okay.
But then I deleted it. And I picked Encanto.
Oh, okay. Well, guess what? We have a consensus pick for 2021. Our first one. Our first one. Best animated film of 2021 is Encanto. Man.
So
what to say
this
about
movie for me had the music was incredible. It was different in such a way that was just, You know what I liked most about this movie is when I first started the movie, I wasn't immediately drawn in.
Right. It sucked you in.
And it sucked me in. And once it dug its hooks into me, by the time it got to the end of the movie, I'm pretty sure I had tears in my eyes for like the last like half hour of the movie.
You're just a wreck. You know, it's when I saw this the first time, I didn't get super emotional with it. I think I was a little tired, and I kind of like wasn't absorbing it as much. But then they put it on that Disney Plus, and I rewatched it, and that's when you watched it, and that's when we talked about it. And man, it wowed me that second time. And I've been listening to the music so much since. Oh man, dude, this is an excellent film, and
it's
just
an excellent movie.
so emotionally charged. You know, the first time, like, I didn't really get like a Coco-esque response, but I did the second time, and not in the same way. You know what I mean? I think it's hitting on a different level of emotionality.
Oh
but
yeah,
it's still striking a similar chord of how affecting it is.
Like the Coco, I feel like the Coco emotionality is like a little kid's not going to think about like death and shit of Coco.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's going to hit on something totally different. But I think that everybody really coalesces and understands like not fitting in or not a sense of non-belonging. This
is fitting in. Where do I belong? How do I fit in? Yeah, I mean, it's...
And not even in society, in your own family.
Family, friends, society, anything. I think it's incredibly relatable for anyone because you can apply it to different scenarios and it's still the same message.
So relatable. Yeah, exactly. It's a very like one thing fits all kind of movie for like every time you watch it, depending on your mood, you can get something different from it. It's an incredible work of art.
Yeah.
Also, the fucking hair. The hair.
You're not wrong. You are not wrong.
Unreal.
It's worth mentioning again. It's only been a few episodes since we talked about the hair for 40 minutes long, but
I've remembered it.
It's worth talking about again. I've remembered
it for a month or whatever it is. The fucking hair stands out.
Incredible animation, gorgeous. I mean, the environments, are just beautifully rendered. The hair is beautifully rendered, and
the music.
The emotions are there, but the music is just so fun and so diverse and entertaining. Like every song slaps. Is really like what I would say about it. There's not a song in the bunch that's bad. I think that's rare for any musical, and there's not like 400 songs in it, but everything. I don't know. It hits a different part of you. Like they're all just so different from each other. So anyway, wait a category, and we'll talk about our favorite song from Encanto. Probably, at least that's how I'm treating the best original song category. We'll get there shortly. Encanto is fantastic, and it's not to discredit Raya. It's not to discredit Luca or Mitchell's, but Encanto just kind of hit that next level. They all did. I guess it hit the next level, I think, overall. Because all those other films had so much to offer.
They all deserve to be mentioned. Like it was a hard pick.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I mean, I can envision a scenario where most, if not all of these animated films that we're talking about crack my top 10, my personal top 10. And maybe some of them did, maybe some of them didn't this year, but there's a year. If any of these films came out last year, maybe they didn't knock off Soul, but they're still in the top 10.
Soul's pretty excellent. And to be fair, you're ranking the best of the best movies, right? Like, yeah. I mean, these movies can come out against. They could if they could come out. It's good that they have their own lane.
It's an easy way to recognize them because
not given their own lane, these movies have such an impact that they would probably just steamroll whatever's in front of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe.
They're just so good. The content is so good. And the awesome thing about just the genre of animated film is the way that these creators make them. They just transcend generations, right? Like the content that they want to deliver, it transcends generations, and they just hit in such a way that no other kind of genre can hit. It's fucking excellent, so good. Yeah. Love me an animated movie, especially from Pixar or Disney. I mean, it's good stuff.
When they hit, they hit, and they hit hard. So yeah. All right, let's move on, and we're going to revive a category that was absent from last year, from the previous year. I guess it's not technically last year. It was absent in 2020, but we're bringing back the best superhero film category because wouldn't you know it, some Marvel movies finally fucking came out. In fact, we got 4 of them. We got a couple DC films. I'm sure there were other stragglers in there, but they didn't make my list. Let's put it that way. So best superhero film. I'll start here. I think this is sort of cheating because it's not really a superhero film. It's a supervillain film. The Suicide Squad absolutely merits some attention here. It's not my pick, but okay. I think that it's just an excellent film. And so this was the part where I was going to shout it out, is to be like, this may not be the best film of 2021, but it was really fucking entertaining. It was really good. It found a nice balance between all these characters, and it made Harley Quinn not insufferable, which has been a rare sight for the DC universe.
Incredible movie. It was just really, really well put together and fucking super compelling. Like, James Gunn knows how to balance that ensemble film and make it funny and entertaining and have the action deliver. Like, it nailed it. It really did. My adjective for this episode is wildly. It was a wildly entertaining movie.
It was exceptionally entertaining, yes.
Exceptionally entertaining,
I was going for the alliteration there to emphasize it. But no, it was great. It was great. It's not my pick for best superhero film, but maybe it's my pick for best supervillain film if you want to invent another category. But for my money,
compared to Venom or Carnage, it's got to be, right. It's got to be
by
better.
default. By default, it's probably there. Yeah, you're not wrong. But I think that best superhero film to me came down to a couple of Marvel films for me personally, and that would of course be Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings and Spider-Man No Way Home. So I'm going to say something. I'm not sure if it's going to make a whole lot of sense, but I will say it nonetheless, and I will try to explain myself as best as I can. I think that Shang-Chi is a better film than Spider-Man No Way Home, but I think that Spider-Man No Way Home is a better superhero film. So the way that I would explain this is I think that The Dark Knight is a better film than Batman Begins, but I think that Batman Begins is a better Batman film than The Dark Knight, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I see this, is Shang-Chi is incredible, but Spider-Man No Way Home is unabashedly a comic book film. It's a superhero film about Spider-Man, about, let's just say it at this point, about Spider-Man. All right, this movie's made $1.7 billion. You've fucking seen it, and if you haven't, you've already seen the spoilers on the internet. It's about Spider-Man coming together to fight multiversal villains, the sort of absolute madness that you'd want to see in a big comic book team-up type thing. And it delivered on all of it. And so, seeing Tom Holland, Tobey Maguire, and Andrew Garfield share the screen was like a pipe dream years ago. You know what I mean? Like,
it's cool.
I'm like,
it's good.
It sucks because like Andrew Garfield got stuck in some shitty Spider-Man films that but everyone was just like, well, he was good. It was everything else that was bad. And we talked about that, I'm sure, to some extent with our bonus episode that we did on all the other Spider-Man films leading up to No Way Home, aside from the Tom Holland ones. But it was just pure bliss. It was such joy to see this all come together and to have everyone be together. Like, man, like the action was satisfying. It was brutal. It was visceral. But like You know, it gave you some comic booky type messages with what played out, and you gave you some really iconic set pieces and sequences. Like, it delivered. It's what you want out of a superhero film. It's why it's made so much goddamn money, is because it's one of the most crowd-pleasing films that 2021, I think, had on display. I think. So
it's Spider-Man.
So are you on the same page for best superhero film?
I think the best superhero film this year was definitely Spider-Man by leaps and bounds. I mean, I like Shang-Chi. But Spider-Man definitely just owns the genre, right? Spider-Man character. His character alone, the way it's written, just speaks to everybody. And the simple thing, the most emotional fucking part of the whole thing is with great power comes great responsibility.
Yes.
It's the biggest thing. Right? And fun fact, today, what am I this is completely off the fucking thing, okay? One of my dad's tenants, they had their trailer stolen. Okay? I've got 900 things going at the car lot. We sold 5 cars today. 5 cars. That's
Very
a lot
impressive.
for 2 people to do.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
Okay? Anyways, one of the tenants had the thing stolen, okay? In between everything I had going on today, I was given the DVR and asked to find the footage of the people the truck coming in and stealing the shit so I could give it to the cops. Okay? That doesn't pay me any money. I'm here to fucking sell cars, and I'm selling 5 of them. Okay? I'm a little irritated, and I find myself asking the question, who else can look into this DVR? No one else can look into the DVR and get the footage. I'm the person that potentially stands in the way of this guy getting his trailer back. With great power comes great responsibility. And what did I do? I fucking pulled a Spider-Man.
Also come great responsibility.
That's true. Yes. I fucking did it. I did it, and I did it for Spider-Man. It's a fucking awesome message that you can ask yourself every day, and it lets you become a superhero. And I think that's why Spider-Man is so such an impactful character on pop culture. He is it's so good. And this movie did it by leaps and bounds because we don't have one Spider-Man, we got 3.
We got 3, and they all understand that message and carry that deep with them because of the tragedy that they had to endure to become the best version of Spider-Man that they could possibly be. You know,
and you know the message of Spider-Man has become like my favorite superhero. He wasn't always my favorite superhero. Some of the more flashier ones. Wolverine was so cool, right?
Well, there's more badass superheroes than Spider-Man, but no one is more relatable than just the teenage Peanut Parker. Peter Parker down on his log. You might as well. That feels like a Flash Thompson-esque insult. Peanut Parker. I think he calls him penis in Homecoming. It's a little more insulting, I suppose. But no, you know, down on his log, Peanut/Peter Parker. You know, like
everybody shits on Peter all the time.
Everyone understands what it's like for life to fucking suck, and you have too much on your plate, and you want to do this, but you can't because you got shit to do. And you know, Spider-Man puts that aside because he knows he has to do what's right and what's in the best interest of saving his city and protecting others. Like he's just the goodest dude, like at heart. You know what I mean?
He's the goodest dude. Yeah.
He's the purest of heart. He means well. All he wants to do is prove himself and be the best like superhero that he can be. And like that's fucking awesome.
It's incredibly awesome. It's so good. And so Spider-Man's grown on me as I've gotten older. And then this movie came out and it just blew me away. I mean, this movie not only like just drips of nostalgia, right? Like the things that began the MCU. like before it was even the MCU. I mean, it's like just drips of nostalgia from superhero movies. But yeah, Spider-Man, dude.
Fucking Spider-Man, dude. Enough said.
Yeah,
Enough said. Excelsior.
But the way it ends. The way it ends for me, and we won't get into spoilers, but...
It's the most Spider-Man thing possible, though.
It's the most incredibly Spider-Man thing possible, talking about down on your luck and this and that, blah, 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 blah.
Putting others before yourself.
Putting others...
kind of thing.
Bingo. Yes, putting others before yourself. And what's he do? You know?
Yeah.
What's he do? And it's just like the most incredible fucking thing. It's so good. And I think that this is probably, it's definitely my favorite Spider-Man movie that I've ever seen. Like it's so good. It's like the best Spider-Man. I want to say it might be, given further consideration, it might be my favorite superhero movie, or like right there in like top 3. Like it's just, it speaks volumes of what it is to be a hero. Yeah. Not even like a superhero, because there's more super-ish heroes, you know what I mean? But it speaks of what it is to be a hero. And it's so relatable at the same time. It's just so fucking good. Really, really, really enjoyed this movie. I've been going on too long about it. It's like another Spider-Man episode. Really enjoyed it. Really
we only had one of them. A lot of times we split those into 2 episodes. And we definitely could have had 2 episodes on No Way Home, but we didn't. We were courteous in that regard, but
we were.
But you know, the things that have been simmering in our brain, we're getting them out now.
And it's one of those things that it sits on you.
It does.
It does with me.
Yeah,
I've only seen it once.
I've seen it 4 times. Clearly, I liked it. I think I might have liked it.
All right, we can move on. We need to move on.
All right, we'll move on. Maybe we'll talk about Spider-Man again.
Spider-Man. What's his impression? What's he say? What's a Green Goblin quote? I did a good
Norman's on sabbatical, honey. Best original song.
Ooh,
Best original song. As I said not too long ago, what's your favorite song up in Kanto is kind of really,
that's
for
fine.
me, what it
That's
boiled
fair.
down to. I think And the Heights is another musical that's in consideration. Obviously, that's drawing off of material that predates 2021, but I would accept it if that's what you wanted to go for.
No,
if you happen to see West Side Story, then you could go for that too.
It's Encanto.
But it's something from Encanto. So what is it? What's you gotta pick one. What are you gonna do?
The really cool one. I think the coolest song is probably my favorite coolest song.
Just a favorite. What's your favorite?
Goes to We Don't Talk About Bruno. I think it covers a wide
Bruno.
Yeah, but it covers like a wide breadth of genres and stuff. The way it bounces from character to character.
Yeah,
I think it's a very creative song. I think it's really cool. But the one that really just drives into my chest, the one that I can feel the most, is one that I can't understand any lyrics to because I don't speak Espanol. But you can just I don't know, you can just feel it. And that's Dos
Oruguitas.
Yes.
Enamoradas.
Yes, that one. It really, I listened to them both before this episode just to make sure that's the way I felt, and I almost got driven to tears on that song again. It's a beautiful song. It's a Spanish song. I don't know, but definitely let you know that Spanish is a beautiful language. Makes you want to learn it, and it's a really good one. It was a hard pick for me because there's one that I understand. I can identify the different genres of music that's kind of like going through We Don't Talk About Bruno. You know, I can pick that song apart musically. But there's one that you can tell that there's one that there was a lot of time given into. Mm-hmm. And it's just a beautiful arrangement. It's a very good song. it feels like a single in and of itself. Like if I was like skipping through Spanish radio and I happened on this song, I potentially would stop and listen to it. You know what I mean? And yeah, so boom. Track number 6.
Track number 6. Was a tough one for me. What I will say is I think that the songs that I've found myself singing or like humming or like hearing in my head most often are Surface Pressure and What Else Can I Do, which are the songs for each of Mirabelle's sisters.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
But ultimately I concur with you. Dos Oreguitas that's the song where the whole film comes together and punches you right in the chest, fucks you up, and you can listen to that song outside of the context of the film, and it's just so beautifully written and arranged.
I'm listening to it now.
And he's bobbing his head as I watch him, and I understand it. I'm not mad about it. I'm like, I don't even know if he can hear what I'm saying, but he's fucking jamming.
I can hear you.
And I understand. I understand what it's like to just listen to that song in a bubble or within the context of the film. It hits you. It's just beautiful. Like it's just really, really
beautiful song.
Really, really lovely to listen to, and it's man, it just gets you. It just gets you. So, Dos Oreguitas, written.
You can also find it in the English version too.
That's right.
Which is the English version is on the thing, and
yes,
it's equally as impactful.
Yeah,
although I prefer the Spanish speaking one.
Yes, I agree. It's the original version of it, so to speak. And they're both good. They both, I think, carry the same sort of impact. But yeah. I was gonna say, written by Lin-Manuel Miranda. It's the Spanish version. I'm not sure about the English version. That may be the same performer, but it's performed by Sebastian Yatra. So credit to those two fine folks for their work on Dos Oreguitas from Encanto. So we've been going at it for nearly 2 hours now. I mentioned at the top of the episode that I always love doing these year in review episodes, and I seem to be really feeling it for this episode on 2021 because nearly 2 hours in, we still have a lot to cover. And this feels a little bit silly, admittedly, after just boasting about not having to do 2 episodes on Spider-Man No Way Home, but that's exactly what's going to happen here. I also feel a little bit silly for teasing that we would talk about No Way Home again later in the episode, but technically I'm talking about it right now. So that prediction did technically come to pass. I'm just saying, okay? What I'm also saying is when we started recording, we fully intended, we'd cover everything in one go, no matter how long it would take. But I actually think right now is a great stopping point. And I'm not just saying that because we're tired, we want to go to bed, whatever. We've gotten through television and I guess what I would call our non-technical, maybe our fun awards. And that leaves us basically with all of the technical awards to still hand out, aside from Best Original Song. But I just figured, with basically how we had already talked about Encanto as our best animated film, it kind of made sense to close the loop with our conversation on Encanto by tying it into our best original song discussion. But that leaves us with stuff like best original score, cinematography, best director, and all of the acting awards to talk about on a part 2 of our year in review coverage, as well as perhaps the biggest part, talking about our best or our favorite films from 2021, which is always it's always a lengthy conversation, let's be honest. And yeah, I think overall that's a lot of conversation to be had, and I think Andrew would agree with me in saying this. It's a conversation that is best had at another time. So, with all of that said, I'm just going to wrap up this episode by saying thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, please spread the word. If you want to support us on Patreon at patreon.com/watchreviewrepeat, $2 a month will get you early access to all of our regular episodes, as well as timed exclusive access to any bonus episodes that we put out in the future. So that's very exciting and a worthwhile cause, if you ask me. I mean, I'm biased, but if you ask me, I think it's great. Our website is watchreviewrepeat.com, and you can also find us on social medias. We're on Twitter at WRRPod. You can just search for Watch Review Repeat on Facebook. You should be able to find and like our page that way. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, technically there's probably a very small window if you wanted to throw out your favorite television shows and films of 2021. There might be an opportunity for us to talk about that on the part 2 of our year in review coverage. So act fast is what I'll say about that. If you haven't sent anything in already, and we have had a couple, so that'll be something that we also cover on the next episode as well. But watchreviewrepeat@gmail.com. That's where you should send that, or aforementioned social media accounts. Our intro and outro track, It's Mechanolith by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. And it goes without saying, but our next episode will, of course, be rounding out our coverage of 2021. It will be 2021, A Year in Review, Part 2, in which we will get to everything that we didn't get to on this episode, which is quite a lot. So look forward to our coverage of the rest of the things in 2021. Andrew, what do you have to say?
Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Laters on the Menjay.